All right, I'll get my snarky banner off so you guys feel a little more welcome.
No, leave the banner up.
I honestly, so my thinking around this has been, and then I'll shut up, is the way to do it is actually to do stuff, which is why for me, Fountain of Comfort has become how to make this a real thing. And hey, I mean, I was hoping I would get at least $1,000 in donations, and I did, which tells me that there's people who care. And while that doesn't mean that I think mental health is the most important thing of what you can call it Peterson sphere, you can call it TLC, you can call it whatever you want. It's where I felt that I could make an actual real world impact. And so here in Los Angeles, like I'm actually bringing it into a real life thing here in Los Angeles in the form of hopefully what will one day be a residential facility which will provide at least some mental health services.
That's a telos right there. That's
That's
goal that you're aiming at.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But didn't all the people who say TLC 6 times a day kick you out and make you into pariah? And
who, me?
Yeah.
Jacob doesn't get kicked out of anything. He leaves.
Well, whatever.
Yeah, I leave way before I get kicked out.
Fair.
It's against my religion to go where I am not welcome.
Yeah, fair. But I mean, you were not welcome.
That's why I left.
No. That's fair. I think, again, though, that kind of proves Father Eric's point about there's a bunch of people screaming about TLC, and they actually don't like the fact of what you've done. I think it's great. I like it. I think it's fantastic. But they don't like it for reasons, right? And whatever those reasons are, right?
I mean, there's definitely a certain people who want TLC to be Christian, and I'm not Christian, and I'm not going to be Christian.
Well, I don't even think I think it's more fundamental. I think they just rebel against any structure, any authority, any boundaries, anything like that. I mean, that's the pattern that I see, right? Because those are the complaints that they have, right? So that they'll do things like, well, this person's trying to lead something, even when that person's not trying to lead anything, right? And then they encourage everybody to do their own YouTube channel, which I think is just the most insane idea ever. There's already too much content.
I've been encouraging people starting their own YouTube channel. I encouraged Father Eric to stream more, didn't I, Father Eric?
I mean, I don't remember a direct conversation, but I saw what you were doing and I wanted in on the action and let me do it on your platform initially. I mean, so that's a form of encouragement right there.
Yeah, in certain people, but that's not everybody. There is a difference. And this is what I would say is the difference, right? The people who scream TLC see no difference between encouraging good people who are going to do good work and be consistent and, maybe have a structure, right? Maybe have a telos from doing things versus everybody, right? Maybe everybody shouldn't try to do everything.
Okay, so yes, reducing noise and increasing signal is something I do, which certain people get very upset at. Yes, but that's their problem.
Well, the irony of some of what I interpret, what I'm hearing is the irony of it is that if I were to think of the more outspoken and popular members of TLC or the Peterson Sphere, they would all.
Oh, I can hear you just fine, Christian.
Yeah,
can you not see me?
No,
I can see you too.
Weird. Okay, good.
Don't listen to Jacob.
If I was to ask them to name who's in TLC, Jacob, Mark, Father Eric, Chad, Grimm, all these names would absolutely come to mind. So
I don't want in.
Very funny.
I don't. Yeah, I
That's
don't know what their
okay,
project
but you're
is,
in.
and so I don't want to be. Well, but I'm not.
Yeah.
No, I'm not, because look,
Okay.
at the end of the day, Christian,
Yeah.
it is my sincere belief that one of those idiots is going to bomb a federal building. The FBI is going to come knocking on my door, and I don't want to be associated with them. Okay, that's really what this is about. You can't
that's
tell me what your
long too
project
late.
is. You can't tell me what your project is. You can't tell me who's in it. Anyone's welcome in. Anyone can say they're in. Right. And so that's the sort of thing that happens. And you can fight back on that all you want. I've been on the internet a long time. This has happened many, many times. This exact scenario. This
What,
is
all
not
your
new.
friends bomb federal buildings, or
I know people who got called by the FBI because they were on forums and stuff with people who either threatened to bomb federal buildings or actually pulled it off. Unfortunately, they were incompetent, which is a plus, and like nothing bad happened, but like a bomb went off. I mean, I know people who've set off mail bombs and stuff. Like, look, you hang out on the internet, man. You're gonna run into some strange people that have done some really dangerous things. Like, they're here, and there's more of them here per capita than anywhere else. And like, fair enough. I'm not like, I hang out with some of these people. I'm not disparaging that. I am saying though, you kind of need to be careful. And that's why I haven't, until I insisted, no, I don't want to be associated with whatever it is you have that, by the way, you cannot explain to me what it is. I just don't want to be associated with it because I have my own project, right? And my project, and this, like, we went through this before about, what is it, eight months ago? We went through this 8 months ago. Not anybody's allowed on my streams, and not anybody can say whatever they want on my streams. My streams have a format. Maybe Jacob's do or don't. I don't care. Jacob can do what he wants. I support his project. I'm happy with it. I have no problem with it. I'm sad that I'm no longer able to stream on his channel, but whatever. That's his choice. It's not a problem for me. I think it's great. He should make those decisions. Those are good decisions to make. I think all of that is good. I think trying to randomly include people in your unspecified project of unknown origin and unknown members is not good. And that's really that's only the only disagreement that I have.
Did we lose Cal?
he
Maybe?
left without me doing anything. I didn't kick him out. He hasn't said anything.
Yeah.
He's allowed to
somebody check
participate or
on
not.
Cal and see why Cal may have decided to leave.
Couldn't possibly have anything to do with Mark.
I can text
He knows
him.
that when
I
you
don't
have
know.
both Mark and Jacob on a stream, no one else is getting a word in edgewise.
That
Yeah.
is not true. Cal, whenever he comes on my channel, not only have I given him the platform to do with as he wishes, I always try to make sure he gets heard. Because Cal is one of the voices which I very much try to amplify. There are other voices I do try to shut up.
Yeah. Jason, you haven't had a lot to
I
say
don't know
so
what to
far. Is
say.
there anything pop into your mind?
Nope.
No?
I
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just listening right now. I'm just basically just listening, trying to catch
Like-
up, see where you guys are at.
So this is an open mic. So I have my little opening rant. I felt strongly about this one, so I made some slides. But we don't have to talk about that all night. We can talk about how awful the weather's been. I think everybody's getting something right now, right?
Feels
It's-
like
it's
negative
so-
30. Let's go.
It is so cold in Los Angeles. I think it was down in the 40s.
I hate California. I hate Californians. California
Worse.
should fall into the ocean.
Lex Luthor was right.
Well, what
I
was the?
walked
I mean, I'm
to church in feels like negative 30.
Ooh.
I
walked like maybe a block.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I could never, ever live somewhere that cold. But Christian actually had some things which he said on the earlier stream, which I kind of wish he would repeat.
Sure, I would gladly do so. Yeah, so I had so in the previous stream, I was mentioning how this little corner, or whatever you want to call whatever this is or isn't,
The Peterson Sphere. There you go. Brand
the
new
Peterson
name.
Sphere. There you go. The Peterson Sphere, or let's make it even more meaningful and just call it the internet. But no, I was really I've personally been very positively impacted by who I understand to be some people who are related to this little corner of the internet in my real life in many different ways. So one way is I've developed some friendships and that have been primarily online, and that's been great. They've fed into certain let's say like inclinations that I have that don't get fed in the real world around me, maybe, right? But most importantly, I've gone through a lot of difficult stuff in my family over the last few months, really over the last 6 months. And some people in this little corner have been remarkably supportive and caring and generous. And it has really shown me the positive potential of things like what we call the Peterson Sphere, this little corner, whatever, or the positive potential of online communities in general, right? Online communities often get a negative rep for a lot of good reasons, right? But I have been tremendously blessed, not only in my mind, not only in my heart, emotionally, intellectually, whatever, by this little corner since 2016, 2017, mostly lurker, whatever. But most recently, my mother passed away on January 7th. My father has been in a really bad financial situation because she had been hospitalized since September for a dual lung transplant. And he was there as often as he could be by her bedside at a hospital about 2 hours from his apartment. He's a Mason. He would go to work all day, shoot over to the hospital, stay with her until they basically kicked him out of the hospital, go home, sleep, work, come back and see her again. He incurred a tremendous amount of financial burdens throughout the course of those 3+ months that went on until my mother, unfortunately for us, passed away. And there was no way my father was going to be able to afford anything like a funeral, anything stable over the next several months, just because of all the expenses that he incurred. So I started a GoFundMe. The thought came to me, and then my sister-in-law reached out to me. She said, "Hey, maybe we should do a GoFundMe." I said, "I was just thinking that. Let's go ahead and do it." I said, "What the heck? Even if we just get, a little bit of support, it's better than nothing." And we have gotten just about double what we asked. We've been and some of the biggest donations have come from people in this little corner who I've interacted with like 3 times. I was just totally blown away. And it's not that I don't have a really good support system in my immediate community, my in real life friends, my family, but it's just financially it wasn't going to be enough to help my dad get through the next good chunk of time. But now he's well positioned for a while. Obviously, he can use as much as he can get. I'm leaving the GoFundMe open until her service, which is this coming Saturday. But if we don't get any more donations, that's totally fine. As I said, we've already gotten more than that, but my dad can really use like I knew he wouldn't even ask. Like he's not even the type of guy that would go anywhere near GoFundMe. So I was like, and then when I told him the other day about it and told him where it was already, and he started crying with me on the phone. And this is a burly guy, Mason, tough guy, and he just melted on the phone. And that's a good chunk of what the GoFundMe is made of, is support from this little corner, the Peterson Sphere, whatever. So
I have to say, an actual Mason, not a Freemason.
Yes, sorry. Yes, a stonemason, brick mason. Yes, not a Freemason. Thank you for clarifying that, because I've actually had questions about that. It's like, oh yeah, especially in this little corner. I should clarify that, but
how is that different, Christian, from something you'd get from being part of a church or a lodge or any other sort of an organization? or even just like a GoFundMe you did on the internet without knowing,
Mhm.
like what's the need to put a label to something that doesn't seem to have a common telos? That's really the question.
Oh, I mean, well, me and my closest group of friends have like anything but a common telos, but we come together when we need each other.
Oh, then it's not a
And
common group of friends, which is fine. But like by definition, it's not a common group. Of
See,
friends. What do you have in
I
common?
disagree with you. No,
What
Mark, I
do you
disagree
have
with
in
you.
common that
Okay.
makes you a group of friends?
You
right?
have a community. You can have a community, and I think actually, oftentimes when the telos is unnamed or ineffable, that is actually what makes the community the most healthy. Of
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. But that doesn't exist in TLC at all. Like explicitly, they deny it anytime you try to do it. Right.
What do you
Anytime
mean?
you try to say they have anything in common, they go, "No, we don't. No, we don't. No, we're all different. We all have their own
Well,
YouTube
okay,
channels."
okay.
It's like, well,
I want
fair.
to I want to understand why this is so important to you, Mark. I really
Like
do.
I told you, because I don't want to knock on the door from the FBI because some idiot who blew up a federal building or tried to associated themselves with me when I don't want to be associated with them.
Do
Right?
you-
Like I
do
there
you-
are
do you-
people like on BOM, for example, I know for a fact. Like, look, you got to understand. There's a lot of backstory that I don't want to air dirty laundry ever, and so I'm going to not do that.
I've been in BOM. I've been in BOM since 2017. Don't worry
There's a
about it.
lot of backdoor stuff going on, right? There's a lot of projects they started that didn't get finished because somebody firebombed them. Okay, so I know for a fact, right? Because I've been told by the former person who ran BOM that some of the people going, "Oh yeah, Mark is definitely in TLC," have repeatedly called for me to be kicked off of BOM, told Paul that you shouldn't talk to me, et cetera, et cetera. And at the same time, publicly, they want to tell everybody, "Oh, no, he's part of our group." Okay, that's deceptive, duplicitous. It's a lie, and it's pretty much evil. Okay, it just is. And I'm sorry to say that, but it is. And that's not one or two people. Okay, so there's something going on there. I don't know what it is. I don't care what it is because I'm a pragmatist. I'm not going to know somebody else's motivations or what they're up to, if they're involved in some grand conspiracy with the Freemasons or the Illuminati or the lizard people. I don't care. Okay, but that's not good behavior. And I don't like that behavior. And I don't want to be associated with people who claim to be part of something and be engaged in that behavior. And I think that's fair to not want to be around people like that in general and not want your name associated with them. It just seems like a bad idea to me. And in my experience, and again, I have a lot of experience. I've seen this sort of thing before many times. This is not new to me. It does not end well. It does not go well. Like, you may notice a certain pattern. Every time there's this little attempt where you know, BOM in general or any of the things around Paul Vanderklay attack, certain people who have been absent for months start popping up again. And like, that always seems to go the same way, by the way. Look, it's a pattern. It's there. I'm not the only one that's noticed it. Something's going on. I don't particularly care, but they can't get their act together. And that's fine too. Like, I'm not mad that they can't keep a Discord server together. They can't get their community projects together. That's all fine. I just don't want to be associated with that level of either bad behavior or incompetence or rebellion or any combination of the three. That's all.
Alrighty. I had a good day and I want to keep that going by thinking positive now.
Please.
So, Christian, here's my bit is when people go around assuming that everybody has the same intentions as them, when in fact they don't, that's a recipe for disaster right there. And so that's why I need to make a banner for this. At some point I will. One of our projects here is make Final Cause great again. Right? We want to raise up, because that's something that Peterson did. I don't know if he even knew he was doing it. God bless him. But he was making Final Cause great again, right? What is your goal? What is your aim? What is your purpose? What sort of person are you trying to become? And when people think that they share a goal and they don't, it's gonna fall to pieces. So I just want to hold up the necessity of having at least, maybe not like 100%, materialist, perfect knowledge of what other people's goals or intentions are, but watching what they're doing and seeing what that leads to. Yeah, we got a little banner here. Is when you talk about these things as if it was one thing pointing towards one thing, and it's not. You're gonna just get all sorts of trouble there. That's what I think.
So
Can I
I never,
ask
I never.
what-
Oh, go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
Well, what would you say is the final cause? Do you have something? Or I'm really sorry. I'm not trying to derail anything. I'm just literally
yeah.
just
No,
listening.
so
I'm not
my
trying to be
point-
disrespectful from not joining in either. I'm just
Yeah.
just trying to listen and see what
Yeah.
kind of catch up.
So I'll just lay it out here, right? The final cause of Father Eric's YouTube channel is to manifest the Catholic intellectual tradition and spiritual life in the world so that it is attractive to people and they join in on the goodness that we have here. I'm trying to make you a Catholic. I think the means that I'm using are appropriate.
What I'm in.
Yeah, sure. So that's
my
my
don't know
goal
what
right
that
there.
is.
Yeah, right. That's my
What
goal
is the
right there for
Catholic-
this channel.
What's the Catholic intellectual deal that you're?
You just keep on showing up and you'll learn about it, all right? Don't worry. We don't need to get that. Rome wasn't built in a night.
He wants you to be in communion with the Pontiff of Rome.
Well, I mean, this feels like if there's a final cause, it's right now it's pretty vague for
That's
me.
my
So,
intention.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
my intention here, right?
Okay.
Now, if Jacob and I are supposedly a part of some transnational organization called TLC, we've got a serious problem. Because while Jacob shows a certain amount of respect to the Catholic intellectual tradition, he is not afraid to throw some devastating criticisms at it where he thinks it's gone wrong. Okay, then. Well, how are we doing the same thing if, while we participate in something common to us, the intellectual life of Dr. Peterson, we've met in real life a few times? I would like to say that we're friends. Hopefully, Jacob would agree.
I definitely think of you as a friend.
But we're not participating in the same pattern towards Dr. Peterson. We're looking at him and doing different things. So it's like, how do we have one thing here within this umbrella term? It's actually a bunch of different things, which is why I think it's appropriate to think of it as, we're analogous to each other in terms of a connection to Dr. Peterson, but what that connection is disparate. The way we participate in the Jordan Peterson phenomena, his intellectual life, his public appearances, so on and so forth, is all very different.
Okay, but Father Eric, I can give a telos, which I believe explains what I'm doing and what you're doing, that
This
both
would be
of
the
us
first time I've heard it.
would agree to, and it would actually not include a lot of people that I would like to exclude, which is I want the telos of my channel is ultimately for people to better understand the revelation of God on Mount Sinai taught by Moses. And I don't think that's something you disagree with.
Well, I mean, so we could take that idea, but
You mean something different because you think that's Jesus.
yes.
And I don't think that's Jesus.
Right,
But
which means that we're not actually participating in the same thing in the same way.
that's part of the point of abstraction. I mean, you could talk about how what you mean by being in communion with the Pontiff of Rome, or the Jesuits are also trying to teach the Catholic intellectual tradition. I don't think you're doing the same thing, right? So
They kind of are.
really, are you doing the same thing as the Jesuits, Father Eric?
I've met some really good Jesuits, really
Yeah.
solid men. Met some
Yeah.
really good Jesuits. So
I mean, do you think that everyone who says
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example, right? You can go to a particular diocesan website where they provide daily mass petitions every day of the year for a free Microsoft Word download, right?
Okay.
Now, 100%, this is not a traditionally leaning priest in the United States who's writing these things. But at least half of the time, I don't have to cross them out and replace them with something else.
Okay.
Right? So it's like, yeah, boy, are there some disagreements? There sure are. Are there some bad actors? Jesus promised us that there would be. But it's not up for me, at least currently, to weed out the bad actors. That's not a responsibility I have right now. And I could see even in people that I would think that I've got a fairly big disagreement with, it's like, oh, they read the same gospel reading today. And that is a perfectly good Catholic petition. And I'm going to read it out, even though, yes, we're not going to pray about UN International Migratory Bird Day today. I don't think so. And then I always think, gosh, somebody in the world actually read that petition out loud. Holy mackerel. Okay. So
Don't you
there's
care
enough.
about the migratory birds, Father Eric?
I don't. I don't hunt geese, so I don't care about migratory birds.
I liked your original statement, although I'll modify it for this stream. One way to think of it is, what do Father Eric and Jacob have in common, if not the ideas and the ethos brought about by Jordan Peterson's rise on YouTube? Like, what else would it be? How else would they have met?
Yes. I think that's a stronger bond of communion between us than is Moses, because we've got such startlingly different takes on Moses.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, I think some of this is very much like the we'll say probably the biggest single criticism I have of Vervaeke with this garbage Neoplatonism junk. It's clearly not a thing.
We're queuing up this rant.
I've talked to a bunch of PhDs on this, like really well-studied people. There's no such thing as Neoplatonism, guys. The thing they have in common is Platonism. And like Dr. Lantern Jack, who's a YouTube channel. Check it out. I love Dr. Lantern Jack. He talked to Vervaeke about this and pointed out to Vervaeke, everything he listed as Neoplatonism is actually just Platonism. That's what those people have in common. There's no new Platonism. It's just Platonism. It's the same thing here. There's no like beyond the Peterson phenomena. We carved out our own little corner, whatever. Nobody puts baby in a corner. I don't want to be in a corner, right? It's still the thing they have in common is still Peterson.
We can all be friends. I mean, I'm looking at the chat, right? And like Father Eric and Jacob are opposites. I don't think we're opposites. Can't we all just be friends? There are people I'm not going to be friends with.
Right, me either.
Right? And so, like, there's a reason why I think Father Eric as a friend. And I don't think of Claire Carr as a friend, right? It's because I think that when it comes down to it, right now, while certainly we have our disagreements, there is so much that we agree on that is important that right now, supporting Father Eric's project, and I mean, that's what I hope I'm doing. I wouldn't be here if Father Eric didn't think I was in some way supportive. You have to, as Vervaeke says, any two things are different and similar in an infinite number of ways. You have to decide what is the relevant ways in which we are different, the relevant ways in which we are similar, and what we are actually going to, make happen.
Yeah, and I think Father Eric did a brilliant job of that at the beginning of this with his little monologue and his slides. I think he outlined it far better than I could, and that was great. I thought it was actually brilliant. I don't use that word lightly or often. I use it here deliberately. I think that is correct. It is not news to me because obviously we've been having this discussion for quite some time, not only on my Discord server and like on my live stream last Friday, right, where I talked about identity, which is a bigger topic, but also wrapped up in this, but also in person. Like we've talked about this for a long time, probably well over a year now. So this is not something done lightly, and it is something done by people with a purpose and a common telos as a group. And it's not just Father Eric and I. Like I've bounced this idea, and as I'm sure Father Eric has, off a bunch of different people. And the Peterson sphere seems to be the right relevant answer. And if you have a different or better answer, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we haven't heard a proposal yet. And this is the current proposal.
I haven't heard any proposal that I think works other than TLC, merely because TLC is what people have started using. And frankly, I don't care. But I'll say, when it comes down to Peterson's sphere, there's two reasons why I don't think it would work. First reason is Jordan Peterson himself is not aware and leading this effort. And to some extent, when you say Peterson sphere, people would think that he is involved. And if it gets big enough, he would want to be involved. Second, he probably would want to be involved, and suddenly he takes over, right? The second reason is Peterson is controversial in ways that it just hasn't been helpful for me to necessarily bring him up with certain people who are willing to be involved in what we are doing here in TLC, but they would never do it if it had Jordan Peterson's name on it.
That sounds good to me. It sounds like a great filter, actually. I'm all in. But none of that's ever going to happen. I mean, this is fantasy that he would take something over, and he doesn't want to. I'm sure he's busy.
That wasn't my point. My point was when people hear Peterson's sphere, they think that he is at the center.
Gateway to the alt-right.
Good.
I just want to add.
Excellent.
I just want to add a couple.
I don't want to
thoughts.
cooperate with those people anyway, so I'm glad they're filtered out. Sorry, Christian. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. So, and this is at least partially due to my own ignorance, most likely. But I've only ever thought of TLC as sort of a label of convenience and more akin to a geographic location than a conglomeration of will. Right. So it's like, do I like being associated with New York? Not particularly. But am I a resident in the state of New York? Yeah, I am. And then as far as the Peterson sphere, I've actually met, I would say quite a few, but really it's a handful of people in what I would think of as this little corner who are in this little corner because of Vervaeke or Paul Vanderklay or Pajot, and don't really have a palate for Peterson. Like they're really not. Yeah. They really don't like Peterson.
That's fair. Where did those guys come from, though, Christian? I mean, Vervaeke's work never gets a view without Peterson first, ever. Pajot never gets any visibility without Peterson, ever.
You mean like historically, like because Peterson did what he did, the level was laid for Awakening for the Meaning Crisis, and because of the Pepe video, Jonathan Pajot's star begins to rise.
Not just that. Peterson actually actively promoted both Pajot and Vervaeke.
Yeah,
he introduced.
That's why they're That's why they're part of the sphere of influence of Peterson.
Yeah,
which I think is the right way to look at it. Right, like so yeah. Look,
and same thing with Vanderklay. Vanderklay's channel was made by Peterson coming onto his channel.
Sure.
Well, it was made by his critique of Peterson being early on and getting in the searches on YouTube and all of that. So
Mhm.
no,
And then
yeah, they
Peterson
don't
came
have to
on
have
his
any-
channel.
Right, and Peter, right. But they don't have to have anything else in common, right? Which was the point of the beginning of this stream, which again I thought Father Eric laid out brilliantly. There is a difference in those things, and I think that and there's a difference in the language. You know, when Vanderklay talks about this, he keeps saying this corner, and then quickly corrects to this the corners within the corner. Well, like I don't find that a helpful way to talk about anything. Like you're just constantly splitting it up and splitting it up and splitting it up. I hate to harp on it, but boy, isn't that a Protestant thing to do? Like just constantly splitting and splitting and splitting and splitting.
You
and
love
splitting.
harping on that, Mark. Don't
Well,
don't give me that.
I don't, but
so just
man,
Mark, just as much
like,
as
the pattern.
as much as perhaps as much as Mark, as much as you don't want to be associated with TLC / this little corner, and you favor the Peterson sphere maybe label. There's people in what they would prefer to call this little corner who would not want to be associated with Jordan Peterson, regardless of the fact that you are correct.
All of them. Yes, almost all of them. Almost all of the people who go TLC do that because they don't want to be associated with Peterson. I agree. Therefore, Peterson's an excellent filter. Like you're like
That's a really
you're just
good
selling
point.
me more on my idea
That's
by
fine.
the second.
that's actually
fine.
that actually has been selling me on it more, because one of the ways I think you make community is by actually having the poison pills for the people. Because I like to say I have not banned anybody from my Discord server, and anybody who wants to be part of my channel can be, but I very actively have kicked people, not out, but made it difficult, brought up the temperature. And it was like, look, if you're here from Chosen People Ministries on my channel, you're going to hear from me, right? That's not going to work.
Yeah, something that I've just been thinking about is, right. I don't want to say that there's nothing, and I might have said that, and that was probably me speaking a little too impulsively without thinking it through properly. So sorry about not being precise in my speech. And then this is why I think this notion of the analogy of attribution, right, of having these different ways that we all participate in kind of the same center, is really helpful tool here. But and so it's not like I object to just calling it this little corner on account of I didn't get to pick the name, I don't like the name, I think my name's better. It's when I see people misusing that name and putting things into the name that aren't really there. And what I see that in is kind of in one of these later slides. What is TLC and where is TLC going, and what do we do to guide and shape and mold this thing? That's where I think the problems come in. And I think if we use an alternative terminology, Peterson sphere, we place what's actually at the center in the center, it'll encourage good thought and good communication that more accurately reflects the realities on the ground, rather than a lot of the confusion and frankly boring discussions. At least I find them boring. Maybe you find them great. That happen on account of
You
account of
convinced me.
the use of the TLC moniker.
You convinced me. I'm sold.
Mark, we got a convert. Internet high five.
Can't do it. I'm dyslexic. I can't do this. My dyslexia is betraying me. High five. Virtual high five, though. Yes. Yeah, and I think the key is I think they chose that little moniker because they don't want to be associated with the thing that they have in common. in the same way I think Vervaeke chooses Neoplatonism, because he doesn't want to admit that it's Platonism, which kind of explicitly, boy, if you read that last book of the Republic, the very last few pages, really does lead straight into Christianity being the right answer. So, yeah.
He's hardly
It's
unique
kind
in
of
that, though.
spooky. What was that, Emma?
That's not unique to him, though.
No, not at all. No. I'm not trying to attribute that to
Here
him. I'm
comes the
just saying.
Plato rant. People
Yeah,
don't
I'm just
actually
saying-
read Plato. They read secondary sources about Plato, and they don't understand him.
Oh no, I know John read Plato. I don't know what he read in Plato's cave, but I know it's not in the book. I don't know what he read, but is it a hallucination? I have no idea where he got that from. It's not in the book. Yeah, we filter things out, right? And so who knows? But there's a lot of people harping, especially now, on Neoplatonism, and they all seem to have something in common, which is they want to deny the Christian story for whatever reason. And it was funny because I talked to Lantern Jack about this years ago on Clubhouse, and because I was asking, because he's got a PhD in classical philology. He doesn't like to be called a philosopher, which I find funny. And he flat out told me,
Yeah, because
he said,
that's
why
not a
does
philosophy degree?
right? But well, he
That's
said,
what I'm
"Why-"
getting.
He said, why does anybody care about Neoplatonism? Christianity crushed them. They lost. That's pretty much what he said. And I was like, oh, I didn't look at it that way before. I guess you're right.
Is it that we crushed them or that we ate
I
them?
mean, I was about to say the same thing. I'm not sure we crushed them. We might have eaten them.
Well, yeah, that's my terminology. But then again, I'm a little bombastic, in case you hadn't noticed.
I don't know. I think eating is almost more forceful.
I mean, this comes into a problem with naming things chronologically as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, think about how utterly stupid a name is that is postmodernism.
Or modernism.
Yeah.
Or modernism,
I
right? But it's worse with postmodernism, because it's like, yeah, that's what's happening after now, which
Right.
I guess it's the philosophy of the future. Like, what are you
Yes.
doing, man? Just
Exactly.
stop. Get some help.
Well, we haven't had any good names since.
Well, we haven't had a good, because we went with modernism. Hey, by the way, just in case, Navigating Patterns is a great video on that. On modernism, why it's a terrible name, it's a terrible label to use, and that's pretty much the gist of it.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say I got to hop off in a second here, but again, I just wanted to express gratitude for the geographic digital space, occasionally known as this little corner, and specifically a bunch of the individual members of that community for all the support, both spiritually and financially, over the last few months. And let's bring the good stuff from this space into the real world. All right.
What's
Take care,
your mom
guys.
and
Thank you.
dad's name?
Oh, my dad's name is Henry.
Mhm.
He goes by Bucky, but his actual name is Henry.
Mhm.
And my mom's name was Brenda.
Okay. I'll keep them both in my prayers.
Thank you so much. Much
And you,
appreciated.
Christian. Thanks for coming
All
on.
right, God bless.
I'm gonna head out too, guys. Sorry. I would love to eventually maybe talk to you more, Father Eric, at some point, ask you about Catholicism, but
Every Sunday night, 7:30 p.m.
okay. Well, yeah, it seems like the conversation's kind of on something else, so I don't want to derail it or anything, but
You can
I don't know
derail the
much about that.
conversation.
Yeah.
Jason
Derail it all
asked.
the way.
That's all right. I gotta go.
Oh,
That's all right. You guys keep going. All right. Have a good night.
Alrighty. Very good.
Alrighty.
How's
Emma, how are
that
you doing?
blanket coming along?
I'm biting it off. I'm so excited. This project has been hanging over me for 3.5 years. Didn't bring it anywhere because it was almost 5 feet long. And it wasn't really fun to work on in the summer because it was almost 5 feet long and a blanket. I'm so excited right now.
All right.
My goal was to finish this by the time I got married. That didn't happen.
That actually sounds like good news. I don't know. Like, you can take it.
I decided not to delay my wedding to finish this stupid blanket.
Yeah. Mark and I met Colin. He gets our thumbs up. He's good
Yes.
people.
Yes,
Okay.
Colin's good people.
I haven't met him, but he
Has your
is good
seal of
people.
approval.
The Peterson
Oh.
Knitting Club.
My sister would be more qualified for that than me. She does the crocheting, crazy crocheting. You could do a lot with
there
yarn.
When there
You
was
can.
a knitting circle,
Yarn
when there was a
sticks.
knitting circle on BOM, that's when BOM had its golden days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there was a stream not too long ago talking about this, and it was rather good. And actually, Chad nailed it, right? When Joey was there was a spirit to BOM. Yeah, I agree.
Because he kicked people out.
Oh, there were lots of reasons. There were lots and lots of reasons.
Yeah.
But Joey moved on for very good reasons, and he's doing great. So I'm happy for Joey. He got his bridge and he made it to the other side. Good for him, because that was always the point of Bridges of Meaning. So good for them.
Nick, that's not fair. We're not burning bridges of meaning, but when Joey left, so did I.
Yeah.
There is nothing keeping me there. I don't know Dennis. I don't know what's going on there. And yeah, it is what it is. So, Emma, what's going on with the TLC Bible?
I knew you were going to bring that up this week. I intend to start working on it this semester, possibly this week. I'm doing my semester schedule and getting a lot of things going and in order.
I made Father Eric a promise that unless he thinks it's a good idea, once we're finished with it, I am not going to support publishing it.
Cool. That actually gives me a lot more motivation to work on it.
I will not support it unless Father Eric gives his nihil obstat.
Because part of it has been Bible?
Yes.
Yes.
I've never given any kind of sign of approval of that.
Yes, you did not give a sign of approval, but I did ask you, is it possible that we could do it in a way that it wouldn't be offensive?
I would have to see the final product. Yes, I guess that's how the conversation did go.
That is how the conversation went. Yes, I mean, I think it could definitely be horrible, but I also think it could actually be good, and those are the fun projects.
All right, now, okay, then you've got this floor. Try and sell me on this Lolcats Bible.
Okay, so one of the major problems with trying to translate the Bible for people who they've never opened a Bible before is you hand them a Bible, and if they're serious about it, they will start probably at Genesis, hit a bunch of begats, and stop. And I think that a humorous take is the only way you can actually abridge a Bible that isn't completely sacrilegious. Because
So not a fan of children's storybook Bibles. Got it.
I've never seen one that I've never seen an action, and frankly, no, actually, a children's storybook Bible is a very similar idea, I think, but you're not going to get an adult to look at a children's
That is
Bible,
true.
right?
That is true.
So something like, if you're going to abridge it with something funny like, and then a bunch of people had kids, right? Or something like that. I think Lolcats could actually do that in a way that isn't sacrilegious, but is interesting.
All righty, Jacob. So here's the $1 million question. What does the Lolcats Bible accomplish that the Lego Bible has not already accomplished?
I haven't seen the Lego Bible.
I think your project's already done.
It's not
Yeah.
image based.
I heard it was really bad.
Okay, I saw like 4 pages of it, but
Yeah, I don't think your thesis holds very, very well, Jacob. I mean, I
Yeah.
get your point, and actually, I think your point is correct. I don't think your thesis holds.
have you ever heard an episode of Father Mike Schmidt's Bible in a Year?
Yeah,
No.
that works for a lot of people. I mean, I don't think it works for meaning crisis people probably, but it definitely seems to work for crisis of faith people pretty well.
Yeah, so basically, like Father Mike, he does his super fast reading of whatever the selected Bible passage is, and a lot of details for a lot of people, they just miss. They just miss it. Goes right past them, and that's okay because you're not going to get the whole thing in a year, and people who don't expect to get it, who expect to get it in a year, and they just won't. But he also gives a little interpretation at the end of it, so it's like Bible in a year. He does kind of 3 passages, and then he links them all together with some teaching. I remember the only time I ever listened to it, my parents were doing it, and they would do it during supper, which is a very monastic way of doing things. I'm sure they invented that accidentally because certain things, listening to a reading during meal times, it just makes sense. And it was Genesis chapter 19. That was the and anybody who knows the book of Genesis knows that's where all the wild stuff happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. And he's just like, yes, there's just a lot of brokenness in God's humanity, when the Lot and his daughters. Look it up, Mark. Look it up. Actually read that part of the Bible. Your eyes will turn into your eyes won't turn into saucers. But when I was in 8th grade and I read that, I was like, what? This is in the Bible. So anyway, I don't know. I think that's what I think. Homilies. I think homilies and explanation does it done.
I don't know. At this point, I do want to see how it turns out. So I will be trying it. But I'm not sure it'll go. I've been on a good streak of finishing things I started a while ago. So.
Awesome. Good news. Well done.
I'm going to head off. Thank you, Father Eric. Be well.
Yeah. You take care.
Cool.
Andrew.
What's Andrew doing?
I had like fucking 3 mints at once.
Now watch
I
the
wanted
language,
to-
young man.
Why
Okay,
would
I'm
you
sorry.
do that?
I'm sorry, Father. Yeah.
It's Corey.
Corey.
Has been, man.
Hi, everybody.
Mhm.
Oh no, Jacob left.
He did.
Yeah.
Oh no!
He
Oh,
saw
no.
you coming.
Yeah, that's probably it. So I tried to get him to read a book that was written by Orthodox Christians, and I don't think he liked it very much. I don't know if he's actually read any of it yet, but I think he'll like it if he actually starts going through
Well,
it.
sometimes I know the
Parts of it.
contents of a book before I open it up, and I don't like it. Like that's happened.
Yeah.
How you doing, Corey? What's going on?
I am well. Tired. New job is fun. Yeah, lots of good stuff. 3 kids, lots of building new relationships in our current community, which is fun in real life.
nice.
So spending a lot less time on internet life.
Good.
Slowly trying to put together a conference, kind of, maybe, hopefully. I've now
Awesome.
spoken to several people who are
Mm.
going to be the speakers.
Right.
So
Now,
Yeah.
I don't want to violate any NDAs or anything like that, but what can you tell us?
man, I can tell you that it's still very early in the process, and it's basically all just me trying to put it together. So it's moving slowly. Biggest things that I'm trying to figure out now are solidifying location, which we've got a place in mind close to where I'm at, but it's a camp, which means it's going to include lodging and food in the tickets, which is making it more expensive. And so I'm trying to like basically figure out what kind of a conference we want this to be. Whether we want to try to make it.
You don't have a Bible camp subsidized by an evangelical church that you can make use of, huh? I think that's how Convivium ended up working out. We were 100% at a Bible camp, and like I bet you there was money from the local church going into that place, keeping it running, keeping the costs down. That's how these things work.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the place I've got is similar, but it's we're trying to figure out what we want the telos of this thing to be.
I will say I'll take more expensive tickets with included food over seemingly less expensive tickets, but you have to figure out food constantly, and it usually ends up being more expensive.
So that's true, and I think that's probably the direction we're still going to go with, but I don't want the ticket price to scare people off, because I'm trying to get people to come to this who have never been to an in-person event. The people who participate in the live streams are the ones who, self-select already, will travel to California to go to an event, versus
Called
little more
out,
regional.
admittedly.
Travel.
No, that's great. I'm
Andrew,
looking
you're too
forward
young
to
to travel.
finding the telos.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear what the telos is going to be of the.
So I can tell you what the theme is. That I think, assuming that the speakers want to agree on it, is storytelling. It's kind of a center on storytelling, because there's lots of different directions you can come into that from and exit it. There's lots of inscape that you can explore, if you like.
That's a fancy TED word right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Convivium words.
There's the idea of, in the Petersonian sense, that reality consists of narratives.
Honey, I'm home.
There's the universal history sense of trying to make sense of where you fit into the grander story. There's the sense of just, how fiction and storytelling has been on the periphery of all the stuff that we're doing generally. Lots of storytellers participate in whatever this space is called.
Peterson sphere. Boom. Got it for you.
Yeah, I still, I don't have any solid
Don't worry about it.
retorts, but
you just trust
don't
me
buy
on
it
this
yet.
one.
I don't know.
Hey,
We'll see.
who's
Listen
the
to Father.
Yeah.
Listen to Father. Listen to Father.
Yeah. And then, probably the most important thing.
Clericalism
Yeah.
right here.
There we go. Very well. I submit.
The one thing is that if I run around attaching myself to something called the Peterson sphere, I have to delete all my YouTube everything, all my appearances at some point to get a job, probably.
Don't attach yourself to it. You don't have to.
Well,
Well,
is
if you
being
wanna
here not
participate.
attaching myself to it?
I
There's
talked to
16
Paul
people
Vanderklay.
watching. Be at peace.
That this is that whole thing. Like, can I talk to Paul Vanderklay, or are they going to drag me into BOM again, or TLC or whatever? Like, because I'm like 4 seconds away from never talking to the guy. Like, seriously, because I'm just like, if you guys want to use that as your criteria for dragging me into your group, then I'll sacrifice the friendship. It's like, really, it's that big a deal. Because that's what they keep using. I'm like, if I can't talk to him, or you're going to drag me into your group, then I won't talk to him anymore. But with the Peterson sphere, you don't have to talk to Jordan Peterson to be, to
that's
associate
too narrowing.
with the movement.
It's my main issue with it, and I don't have the words for it yet, but it narrows too much. Like, are we trying to make Peterson the telos of what we're doing? Because if it's in the name of it, then, there's some of that goes along with it, right? Like, there's something going on here that he started. I agree with you that he is the initiator for a lot of this.
That's
And a
what
lot
people
of
have
it,
in
even
common.
implicitly.
But
I
that's
think
that's
there's
the
more than
common
that.
that's the common factor.
He's revealed something that's already been going on, like it's deeper and more encompassing than he gave a lot of people the kick out the door, but I think what people have in common is that they're doing the stuff that he said to do, which is actually, well predates him, right? Like they're united in trying to figure out what the truth is and remain loyal to it, whatever it is that they discover, which is little bit.
But they wouldn't have
less-
discovered any of that without him still, right? It's
Sure,
still
but you
flows through
could
him.
say that for lots and lots of different people who are
No,
discussing
no,
this
no,
area.
no, no. I actually I don't think you can. Like he's very unique in that way. And like if you understand some of the backstory, like I was mentioning some of this in the chat earlier, like it's not merely that Vervaeke's work doesn't have any traction without Maps of Meaning and all that coming out first. It's actually Vervaeke doesn't get a YouTube channel. And that has more to do with the fact that they're both at University of Toronto and they're both well-known professors. And the guy or one of the guys who did the early Peterson videos at UFT for Peterson then did the same thing for Vervaeke and convinced him that it was a good idea, right? So there's all
so
this
your
stuff going
framing
on in
works
the
for
background.
Vervaeke, but how many other people have been brought together in this who have already been talking before Vervaeke ever came on the stage, before even Pajot or, this is, what was the Wisdom
but
channel that was going on for a long time? I don't even remember what it was called.
The Rebel Wisdom.
Yeah, the Rebel Wisdom thing to me.
That came
seemed
out of
to-
Peterson. That came out of Peterson.
I-
That's the thing. Like all the stories so far that I've heard, actually all of them, and I haven't heard all the stories, all the ones I've heard go through Peterson, and they start at Peterson, all of them, mine included. And like, I'm one of these people who says, yeah, Peterson is nothing new. There's only two things Peterson said that were ever actually interesting to me, and the only reason they were interesting is because, like when I read Taleb, they were things that I knew about that I'd never heard anybody else talk about. And I was like, oh, I knew about that. No one else has ever talked about it. This is kind of interesting. So it's not like I'm like, oh, Peterson brought up this new language and new whatever. I'm actually not like that.
And I'm not saying that you're like that. I agree with what you're saying in a sense. But what I'm saying is naming something gives it its own direction. Like, do we want it to always be the case that this conversation originates from Peterson? We need to move beyond him.
I mean, that's what the sphere does, right? The sphere does that. I mean, that was the point of this. I mean, this is why I think Father Eric's presentation in the beginning here was so brilliant, because he actually gives you that distinction very clearly between those two things.
I'm not sure he caught the beginning of it, but
Right.
We've got analogy of attribution, right? Health. We've got the physician, we've got medicine, we've got the signs of health on a dog, and we've got a symbol of health. They all have this idea in common, but they participated in it in different ways, right? And that's a weak form of analogy. It's not unreal, but it's weak. We've got analogy of proper proportion, where the same pattern happens at each level of participation. So the father begets the son, just like an earthly father begets the son, just like the founding father begets the nations, just like the Pope doesn't beget the church, but he cares for it, gives it proper rule, just like a bishop ordains his priests and looks after them if he's a good bishop. They all participate in the same pattern on different levels of reality. And that right there gives you one thing, fatherhood, that can be spoken on many levels, whereas an analogy of attribution gives you many things that have one property in common. And so I think the only thing that we have here in this little corner is Peterson turns into an analogy of attribution, but people participate differently. They have different ends in their participation. So you've got people whose salvation for a desperate man, other people he's an ally in the struggle against tyranny. And both of that's fine. It's not bad, but it turns into a bunch of different things rather than one thing. There's a 30-second version of my presentation.
I might have been, so I'm not speaking clearly. And this is why I'm like, I don't have fully formed language for this, but I'm not disagreeing with anything that you just said. I think that it is more accurate in an ontological sense to use that term. But naming something is also a subcreative act. It's a thing that causes things to move in a certain way in the future as well. So by putting a name to something, even though it might be in some ways a more accurate framing, it's also a narrowizing and directing framing that tends to cause things to move in a certain direction. TLC is more all-encompassing and less less directive, less controlled, which is exactly your discomfort with it, right? Because anybody, it's almost too open in a sense. Like you can be dragged.
It's not. They're explicitly using it to dissociate from Peterson. That is the only people who use it because of that and use it for that reason.
Well,
and so it is
I think the
explicitly
people-
an identification.
I don't know if I'd go that far, Mark. Some people just use it because it's a term they've heard and it's describing some phenomena that they want to. I'm not going to ascribe that level of attention to them.
Well, that's
Yeah, I
that's
think a
fair.
lot of
Not
people use it
not
just 'cause
everybody
it's
that uses it with intention, right? Some people use it out of convenience. I agree. That happens with everything. But also the people that push this idea and try to say who's in and who's out and why, and oh, you talked to Vanderklay or you've been on his live streams and therefore you're definitely part of our group. I don't know why that would be true. Like why? Because Paul and I are friends, should I automatically be dragged into something that he didn't name, he doesn't lead, he doesn't want to lead, and he admits have corners of corners, which to me makes no sense. Like, again, if you're every time he says this little corner, said, and don't forget there's corners to the corner. Now you're invalidating the thing you just said, like explicitly in language.
What it is it's
never
almost
understood what that means.
it's almost like they're trying to create a self-similar fractal there. Self-similar fractals being like this right here, an analogy of proper proportion. There's another way of saying a self-similar fractal, but without having the goods to back that up.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I think when people talk about an aggregate of things that don't have intrinsic unity as if they were one thing that has intrinsic unity, I think that leads to people, and I'm rehearsing some of the stuff that we went over already, but Corey wasn't here. Corey's my friend, so I'm going to help him out. When people assume they're doing the same thing, when they're not actually doing the same thing because they have different intentions, then that's a recipe for a disaster along the way. And we had Jacob on the stream earlier, and Jacob and I don't have the same intentions because I want people to encounter the Catholic tradition, see its goodness and beauty, and become Catholic. And that's not what Jacob's doing. I don't think what Jacob's doing is bad. His fountain of comfort thing could end up being some good spiritual and psychological care for people that need it, right? Like, I don't know. But it's not what I'm doing. So
I don't see how.
What else do they have in common?
Well, I don't
we
see
did
how
go to a
they're-
Mexican restaurant together.
How did that happen?
He came to Wapaton.
How did that
Yes,
happen?
we met on Bridges of Meaning Discord server, and he was immediately interested that I was a Catholic priest because he appreciates a good hierarchy.
He does.
Well, how did the Bridges of Meaning Discord server start? Does anybody know? It started as the Jordan Peterson meetup group, and that's actually the genesis of the Bridges of Meaning Discord server. Just a little history there. Kind of matters sometimes.
I think it's interesting that you, Father Eric, and Mark have been sort of seeing people trying to ascribe basically a greater level of cohesion to what they call TLC that I've picked up on. I'm not saying it isn't there, I just didn't notice it. And I think that's part of where this is coming from. And maybe, I don't know, Corey, if that's also maybe tripping you up. Because it took me until tonight to see the difference between the Peterson sphere and TLC. And a lot of that is because I went back and watched some of this week's PBK videos about the whole thing. And I kind of see it now. Did that make sense? I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah.
I haven't watched any of the stuff that's been this week. I'm a little behind, but what you said resonates with me. Yeah, and I think, I don't know. I think that the concerns that Father Eric just laid out, I am 100% on board with. I think there is a lot of naivete out there, which is, you know, and a lot of different efforts maybe moving in lots of different directions. I don't think it is fair to call TLC a thing that is unified in the sense that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There might very well be some people who are using it in that way. I didn't think of it in that way, and maybe that's just just me being naive.
My previous argument would have been, is anyone saying that? I don't think anyone's saying that. But then I watched more stuff and I was like, okay, I guess there are people saying that.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
fair
I mean,
enough.
I like Mark don't like airing out dirty laundry. So I'm not going to like start accusing people of speaking in a certain way about TLC, except for Vanderclay, because he's got a big profile and he does it. So, Pastor Paul, I want you to watch this and change your mind and be colonized by me so I can be correct. And give glory to God and all that stuff. But, you know, me being correct.
So then don't
Even better.
So don't there need to be lots of? Do we need to name the subdivisions then? Because I think just renaming it Peterson Sphere doesn't get you that far in terms of allaying those concerns.
It's
Well,
not
don't
supposed
the subdivisions
to.
already have names?
It's
Either the name of the YouTube channel, or it's like the Catholics, or the Jews, or the Protestants, or the Grail Country Universalists.
Yeah, I think that's again. Yeah, you got to watch the presentation at the beginning of the stream. It was really good, right? The difference is in the Sphere, you can have a different attitude. Like everybody who watches Peterson, even now, doesn't watch him for the same reason. So you can't give them all the same telos, but you can say they're all connected in that they watch Peterson. And those are two different ways of thinking about it. And again, when you hear Pastor Paul, my friend, Pastor Paul, talk about TLC, he always says, and then there's corners within the corner. So it sounds like he's struggling with that very issue. How do you identify the unity and still acknowledge the things that aren't unified about them? And I would say you don't, right? And
done?
You name the thing they have in common, and you say it's in common.
Did we just watch history get made
did.
here?
We made history. That's what we do in the Peterson Sphere, Corey. We make history.
I still need to weave all the loose ends in, but it is 5 feet long, very cabled, because 3 years ago me was insane. And it's done.
Emma wins. Yay.
I got to make that scroll across the bottom.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Ted, good to see you, man.
Can you hear us,
Good
Ted?
to see y'all too,
Really?
or
Okay.
digital simulacra of you. Just to remember those things. Am I coming through at all? My internet's
There
going
you are.
really
There you
hard
are.
right
There was
Yeah,
a
there
little
you are.
delay, but now you're back.
I'm gonna see just a second. I might have to do no video. I'm gonna try to do this without. If I remember last time I did this and I managed to accidentally turn myself into a solo. Hold on.
Yeah, he managed to delete the wrong person from the stream.
So he only
Chaos.
deleted a simulacrum of himself, so it's okay.
Okay, I figured it out. Excellent.
Yay. Well done.
Here in the south, and so even the internet is freaking out.
You've got snow coming your way, Ted. I mean, you should be freaking out.
We have snow. We have like 2 inches of snow, and so the world is shut down.
Yeah.
Everything is
Oh,
over.
no.
Like, how
No,
many
it's coming
plows
in
do
the
you
end of
think you
time.
guys
Yep.
have in your county? Because I guarantee you, in my county in
Like
North Dakota,
4,
we've got about 100.
Probably.
Is one of them
You probably
plowing,
have as
plowing
many
the
people in
plow
our
face?
county as you have in your entire state, too.
Probably.
Man, I can't make this work. It's just not happening today.
Uh-oh.
Really big
Oh.
delay. I'm sorry to hear that, Ted.
Man, bad internet.
I
Bad internet
my
hurts us
best.
all.
And we'll take your best, but I'm just gonna go ahead and we're just gonna end it there. Yeah. Got a 5-second
Yeah.
delay on his internet feed.
That's too much.
That's like Earth to the Moon Apollo 11 mission right there. You need a
We have to-
real sharp communication protocol to make that work.
Yeah, what are
We
we
have
back
to
in the
fix
60s?
his internet.
Send someone out there to fix Ted's internet.
In 3
our
inches of
next
snow,
mission.
who could make it anywhere?
3 inches of
I
snow.
don't.
is
We don't
nothing.
actually have that much.
Yeah, you were north of it, right? You're getting all the air we warmed up for you. It was negative 35 wind chills this morning, which means by the time it got down to you, it warmed it up by 5 degrees. You're welcome, Emma.
What are you
Thank you.
whining
It's
about?
appreciated.
What are you
It's
whining about?
appreciated.
Sally Joe's water shut off because it was negative 40. The temperature, not the wind chill. Actually, she said the temperature got down to negative 54 or something like inconceivable to me.
I think that was the wind chill. I don't think that was this.
She said I got really cold, and I was like, "What?" Yeah, her water didn't work for like 6 hours, and I was like, "What the hell?" And I'm like, "You wanted me to move there? I'd be dead. I'd be dead just knowing it was that cold outside. That would take me out for sure."
Yeah.
It gets under 70, and I'm like, "A little cold here."
You're an old man, Mark.
No, that's the illness. That happened long before the age. That was the illness. The illness really. I've gotten better though. So yeah, beetroot juice. That's the key. Powdered beetroots in your smoothies. Very important.
Okay.
Wouldn't have
That
guessed.
works.
Mark, health influencer.
I know a lot about health, especially digestive health. So yeah, if you need to know anything about autoimmune disease or digestive health, just ask me. I probably have researched it. But the thing is, Emma, the important part here is you win. So that's what matters.
You've got a blanket that'll
Clearly.
keep Mark warm if
Yes.
he ever had it. That in theory
Mhm.
could keep Mark warm.
It
Is
could.
it for somebody?
So, you know the idea of a trousseau? A trousseau or a hope chest was something you would start traditionally like years before you got married as like back when you had to physically by hand make everything that you used in your household. So it'd be full of like blankets and sheets and tablecloths and linens and everything. And you would work on it like your whole life from the time you learned to sew until you got married, and you would take it with you to establish your new household. And I wanted to do like a mini symbolic version of that. And that's what this blanket is. So that's why the idea was I would finish it by the time I got married, because it was like one thing that I was producing for my new household.
Then Colin showed up unexpectedly.
No, it was after we were engaged.
Oh, the knitting
Oh,
took
you were
longer
just-
than you expected.
The
Super
knitting just took
optimistic.
longer than I expected, and then I kept getting distracted by other projects because I'm like that. And so now 2.5 years into this marriage, I finally finished my trousseau blanket.
That's great. I know about hope chests. I didn't know that the fancy French word, which is hysterically ironic. I know.
You should be all
Yeah.
into the fancy French words.
Ma
That's your
tante.
heritage.
That's my French words. Ma tante. That's it. It's my aunt. Sure. That's the most Frenchy word I get right there. And the French would be horrified, right? Because it's French Canadian, and they pretend like they don't understand it because they're snobs.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Mostly just the Parisians, I'm sure. Actually, the whole
Probably.
country might unite against Canada, though. They might. I can
They
see
might.
that happening.
Yeah, even the Southern Frenchies might be like, bridge too far. And the French Canadians have no problem understanding French. So I don't know. You tell me which is better.
I like being an American. It's good. It's
Amen.
good that we are here.
Yeah, my grandfather liked it too. He was very big on, even though he would regularly sing "Oh Canada." So, yeah, it was always it was always America first with him. So he was very happy to be here.
Yeah.
Well, I stopped by to say hi, and it's good to see you all. But
Good to see you.
I'm gonna
Good to
head
see you,
over
Cory.
and start moving towards the bed.
Good
Alright.
idea. I'm
Alrighty.
gonna email you, Cory. By the way, so you're gonna get invite to some documents. So
And I'm going to see Cory at the end of February in Tampa at the Symbolic World Conference.
awesome.
Luckies.
Yeah,
Lucky people.
yeah. This is what I do for vacation, Emma. It's I go
I
to these
know.
conferences with all my internet friends.
I wish I could go to that one, but it is not going to work out with the school schedule and the using spring break to go skiing with my grandparents instead, which is a good thing to do as well.
Definitely a good thing.
It's
Cool.
been a while since I've actually hung out with my grandparents for a long time. So
Good.
Well, if
good.
any of you Northerners can spare that snow that you're going to ski with, send it down farther this way. It's supposed to freeze tonight, but I don't think we have any precipitation, which is a bummer.
that is a bummer.
I'm sure the
Well,
state
have
of Texas
fun.
is happy.
Have fun with your winter down there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
I
going
hope
to
none of
take
your
what I
pipes
can get.
freeze.
Winter
We have
where
to
the
start a
air
drip.
doesn't immediately hurt your face.
They had to send out like a mass like notification to the entire state. Don't forget to drip your faucets and like all this stuff. This thing that appears on the ground in the morning when it's cold out is called ice. Don't eat it. Don't drive on it. And like it's
Don't
All right.
eat it.
I don't know. I'm
Why
making
don't you
things
just
up.
bury the
Yeah.
water pipes underground under the frost line?
What's a frost line?
Yeah, how do you know the frost line?
You just dig down there and you can see where the frost is. Even an idiot like me could see it.
All right. You guys have a good night. I look forward to your email.
You too, Cory.
We'll see you.
Oh yes.
Oh,
Never
that's
liked
all right.
that.
There we go. That's better.
With
There
three
we
people, you got to do the window view.
Yeah, the three
Yeah.
really skinny people.
Well,
Really
well centered.
skinny.
They'd have to be
Yeah.
well centered on their cameras.
Even still, I think it's a little too. You noticed Phil Collins' album covers? They were
Yeah.
all just pictures of his face.
Hmm.
And I get that he had a bankable face in those days because he was huge, but like, I don't know. You could have like one album cover be your face, and then like have another album cover be like a
Something
bomber
else is
flying out of Egypt, and
You
it'd be
need-
the Out of Egypt tour.
You need cool art for your album covers, Father Eric.
Oh yes, yes.
That's what you
Did
need.
you did you show that to me when I was down at your house?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's signed.
Yeah, I didn't have them in the frames.
Oh, okay.
No. Yeah. I got them signed by
Sick,
Roger,
man.
myself personally. It was awesome.
Nice.
So, yeah, there's a whole story behind that. I think I did tell you the story, but yeah. Well, whatever. One of these days we can tell the story.
Okay, a little bit of context, right? Last year at about this time, I went and hung out with Mark in South Carolina. We had a great time. Got lost in the woods. Saw an aircraft carrier. It was great. And then we listened to some Yes, and I reminded Mark of how cool Yes was in the '70s when they were just out exploring, and yeah, we had a little bond between us in terms of Yes. And then apparently you showed that to me. The
Yeah.
guy who did all the artwork for the classic Yes albums. Apparently he's got it. Is that an original or is it a copy?
No, they're prints. They're prints.
Okay. It was still pretty cool
But
that
it's
you got it
signed.
signed.
Yeah, I got them. I bought them at a science fiction convention, and we ended up getting signed. And actually, I think, Father Eric, that the first thing you did when you got here was like, "Hey, let's listen to some classic Yes." And I was like, "Boy, I
Nah, this
haven't
was like
listened
day
to-"
3 or 4.
Was it? I was like, I haven't listened to classic Yes in 50 billion years, like, since I was young, and like it's still before my time. Yeah, there we go.
Check it
And
out. No, it's yes, not yeah.
but we were at the science fiction convention and we bought those prints, my buddy and I, and he was like, "Oh, Roger's coming down to sign these because he's here," and which we knew. And we were like, "Oh," and he's like, "Yeah, you should be here in a couple hours out of this, he's doing a panel." And so we were waiting around, and then we're like, "Oh, we need to go to the snack room," which is, just around the corner, really. It's the same room, actually. And so we did that. And then when we came back, a line had formed, and we were like, "Hey, we've been waiting here for like 2 hours." But what ended up happening was it wasn't an organized thing. So my friend and I are actually competent managerial type individuals. So we like went and figured out how to make it work. And then we directed a couple kids because, we're old folk. We don't do that hands-on stuff. And we're like, "Why don't you guys go get Roger a chair and we'll set up this table here." And they ran around and did all the work and then set everything up. And then so we said, "Why don't, because you did all this work for, to make this happen, why don't you get in line first?" So they were 1 and 2 in line, and we were 3 and 4 in line. And some people were staring off, but like I know a bunch of people at that conference, and they saw me and they were like, "Oh," and then they were like, "Let's not say anything." I have a reputation, but also a lot of people realized, "Oh no, these two are making this happen. Otherwise, he has no place to sign things and doesn't know what to do." Like we just actually like built a space. Because he was just going to come down and like try to sign things, but there's a big line of people, and what do you do? Well, you need a table. The guy's kind of old, and yeah, it was fascinating. We got to watch him doodle at a couple of points in the conference, and yeah, in the convention rather, and yeah, it was a great experience. So yeah, it ended up getting that experience and getting 4 pieces, 4 prints signed. So that was great. It was really, and he's a sweet guy. Oh, what an interesting character. Very, very artistic.
I feel like if you were running in the same circles as Yes was in the 1970s, you got to be an interesting character. Like you're not going to have, a 9-to-5 accountant unless that 9-to-5 accountant is really into, 7/4 time being interrupted by John Anderson and going, "Ah."
But the 70s were just a really interesting, wild time, right? It's very bifurcated time.
I mean, like Rick Wakeman, like he had access to a high level piano and organ education in, like Bach and Chopin and Debussy and Beethoven, and like he was a classically trained musician with chops, and so he had that foundation in the musical tradition that was his heritage, and he took it and did a lot of interesting things with it, but he had that foundation first. So
You need that foundation first.
like I look at guys like Chesterton and Lewis and all of the Inklings, and like they got their butts kicked in school, and I'm not going to run away from that fact, but daggone it all, they could read Greek and Latin.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that. And that'd be really useful right now.
Well, and I got to disagree with you. I mean, a lot of bands didn't have that training, and
But Yes did.
And well, Yes did, yeah. But a lot of bands didn't, especially in the 70s, but even in the 80s and 90s, and that actually benefited them to say, like, I mean, if you want the classic example, it's Eddie Van Halen, right? Like Eddie Van Halen comes out and he's doing things with the guitar, and people are like, "What the hell's going on?" And it turned out he taught himself how to play guitar. And
he was taught by his parents, I thought, how to play piano.
Maybe how to play piano, but no one taught him how to play guitar. So he's playing guitar in some way that no one's ever seen or heard before. And they're like, "What is this guy? How's he making this noise with this instrument?" And much like Jimi Hendrix too, by the way, but like really self-taught, and he like figured out a new way to play the instrument that no one had thought of. And like a lot of people don't know that, but that's what's so groundbreaking about it, because at the end of the day, and I love Van Halen. I think it's great. But at the end of the day, it's kind of not very sophisticated musically. Like, that's not a knock on Van Halen. I'm a huge fan.
You
but
don't go
like,
there for sophistication. Boom, problem
no,
solved.
you don't. And you know, you hear the story of someone like you know, the band like Metallica, right, where they had one classically trained musician, the bassist of all the people, right, and then they do kind of their best music because it's ensemble and actually because their best album, which is probably the best heavy metal album that could ever exist, they do with Dave Mustaine, right? And then they get rid of him for probably good reasons at the time. But like then the you know, the one guy who's really good dies in this horrible bus accident in Europe, and yeah, later Metallica's not as good. Sorry, like I'm a early Metallica guy. Like I think that stuff is fantastic, and not to knock on the later stuff. And then there's another transition later where they get even garbager, in my opinion. Not that even that they're bad. It's just that I'm super picky. Like admittedly, like I'm super picky. So you know, you can't pick one. You can't say, oh, you need classical trained musicians to have a good band, and you can't go the other way either and say, well, you can't do without them. It seems like, you know, you need a mix of both, and it's that mixing that's the real confusion with everybody about everything nowadays, right? I mean, a lot of people will you know, they'll make some statement like, well, you know, you can't have a band without a classically trained musician, they would suck, and then you find a bunch of exceptions, but then when you look numerically, exceptions are exceptions, they're rare. And so maybe you shouldn't try to make the rare thing common or claim it as a commonality. Right? That's really the struggle. The struggle is, oh, we see an instance of this, you know, like you see an Elon Musk and you think, well, I should be like Elon Musk. And it's like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, even if everybody could be like Elon Musk, which of course doesn't make any sense, and people don't know that.
It wouldn't be any good if everybody.
It wouldn't be any good, right?
Yeah.
Because
Elon Musk wouldn't sit there and knit a blanket.
No,
right,
probably not.
And that's the
knit a blanket, but that blanket is a good thing.
It's a good thing, right? Well, and it's good that we have people like that. I actually went over that in my identity live stream on navigating patterns this Friday. Right,
I watched a little bit of it. I wasn't able to get through.
Oh well, it's a good.
I might go back in. I'll probably go back in later.
Give me some comments if you can. Catch me up on the Discord server. Give me your opinions. Yeah, I mean, you know, you don't want that, right? You want people to participate in the best way that they can in something bigger than themselves. That's what a company allows you to do. Not to say that all companies do that or are good at that, but that's the reason why we have Elon Musk forming companies, so that you can help people go to Mars, even if you don't have, we'll say, the skills at rocket building or whatever, you know, whatever. There's tons of things you do in a company that aren't directly related, right?
Sure, NASA needs an accountant.
Exactly.
NASA needs somebody to take out the garbage too.
Yeah, and
yeah. I mean, you know, there's a role for everybody in these structures, and a good structure provides a role for everybody, and a clear one that they can focus on and be good at, because you can't be good at too many things. And even if you meet somebody like Elon Musk, who maybe he can, I don't know this because I don't know the guy, or I never met him.
I think
maybe he can be good at 10
companies and gathering capital.
But maybe he's actually good. Like maybe he's a good programmer, and he's a good manager, and he's a good visionary. Because those are three different things.
Wouldn't that be a combination of skills? A good
programmer, he might
and
be.
A good manager.
I've never met him. He might be.
That sounds like being a good engineer. Somebody out there and good with people.
But somebody out there is, like, right? And but that doesn't mean you can be. But it also doesn't mean you have to be. And that's where the deep confusion comes in. Everybody wants to be everything all the time, and it's like, obviously that's not going to work. But they don't see when their thinking leads down that path and inevitably ends there, which of course isn't an ending, because you can't do that, and people can't differentiate that. And it's really important, you know, that people understand that those things are different, and we really have a problem. And that's what causes, in my opinion, is one of the contributing factors to the meaning crisis, is that people don't understand proper connections versus improper connections. I'm all for a failed musicians group named Peterson Sphere. Sounds good to me.
Honestly, I think God had to give me a baritone voice in order to prevent me from trying to be a rock musician. Because none of those rock musicians, besides Frank Zappa, which, as you rightly pointed out, is an exception, that had a baritone voice, they all had that crazy high tenor voices, right?
Yeah, you're right on the edge of like circus life, only as a rock musician. Yeah, I'm surprised you're not a roadie, actually. Like, you spend any time with Father Eric and you're like, he's like 4 seconds from being a roadie. Like, I feel like if he had the right invitation to the right group of musicians, he'd like rip off that collar and be gone.
Get thee behind me, Satan.
Now, all we need is a Catholic band that needs a chaplain.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe the amount of mental time for me that goes into imagining the coolest Catholic prog rock revival band of all time.
I can imagine that. I can imagine that.
With me as the bassist, of course.
Of course.
I'm going to play Rickenbacker with a pick because I want to be Chris Squire when I grow up.
Yeah. No, somebody who's really into music. Yeah, this guy.
Yeah, 100% could. All right, kids. I was up at 4:30 today,
Oh man.
and I'm going to take my administrator privileges and just end this stream 5 minutes early. But thank you. Sorry, I got Aquinas on keys and Creef on bass. Thomas Merton on saxophone. Yeah, that's a dream lineup right there. And so,
Amazing.
good night. God bless you all, and I'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Have a good week.